Hello, welcome to another Excel at the Office video. My name's Adrian, and today I'm going to run through with you a recent blog I did because I noticed that if you're looking for a new laptop, there are literally thousands of laptops available, plus dozens of options you can choose for each laptop, which equates to endless potential days, hours, even weeks researching and not really getting very far and not being able to excel at the office, as it were. So I thought I'd just share with you via video a recent blog that I'd done and talk you through some of the options for the best laptops for this year, 2023. And I'm focusing in this blog on Windows-based laptops because that's what most people buy. I have a Windows and a Mac, best of both worlds, as it were. I'm not that fussy. But if you just want to know which three I've chosen, let's do that now. So for a £300 budget, I would recommend the Acer Swift 1. It's a 14-inch laptop for a £500 budget. The Hewlett Packard 15.6-inch Full HD laptop. And a £1,000 budget is the Asus VivoBook Pro, and that's a 15-inch laptop. So let's get to more detail. So as I mentioned, it's really it can be really troublesome researching a good laptop, so that's why I've done the research for you. So let's get to before we dive in, I want to tell you about the holy trinity of what to look out for on laptops if you're researching further or you're choosing different options based on what I've suggested here. There is a holy trinity buying guide, as I outline in my blog, and those relate to the RAM, the SSD and the processor. When you get those things right and spend enough to get a decent amount of each, then everything else tends to fall into place and you don't have to worry about all the other endless aesthetics and other features that come on a laptop these days. So the core things to get right are the RAM. So if you're unsure about that, the RAM is the computer's working memory. So that's how many different things it can do at once, like you're creating a Word document, an Excel file from one of my templates, for example, PowerPoint, doing emails, browsing the web, watching videos, and so on and so forth. The SSD, no longer do computers have to have a spinning hard drive disk. It's now SSD, solid state drive, which is a bit more compact and future-proofed in terms of keeping your data for longer. That's how much stuff you can store on your laptop, and a bit like an external hard drive where you store photos, videos and other files. It's similar to that, but it's just internal to your laptop. And around about 256 SSD will give you enough to do most things, as long as you're not being too data hungry in terms of storing lots of videos, for example, on there. So I know someone who takes a lot of videos on their fancy phone, backs it up to their laptop, and lo and behold, it soon runs out of space. So even phone videos are very data heavy. Whereas with the RAM, it's around 8 gigabytes will give you stuff working pretty fast, all in all. And the processor is just generally how quickly your computer is able to deal with and advanced programs and so on and so forth. Most of them are Intel processors, so I would recommend, if you can, go for at least an i5 Intel processor. So that's allows you to do, again, most things, and you're getting that RAM and the processor right will mean things like your computer starts up quickly. It doesn't slow down when it's dealing with lots of processes. It doesn't slow down when it's dealing with lots of data heavy processes, for example, working lots of data in pivot tables and such like that in Excel. So those holy trinity will sort you out, and everything else will fall into place with the laptop. I'd also, in my blog, I mentioned personally I'd avoid Chinese brand laptops or things that say like eMMC instead of solid state drive. Those are just cheaper alternatives. They may break, and or you don't really know what's going on, how trustworthy the tech from these other brands are. So when you're buying a laptop, presumably you're doing more important things than just browsing the web or dealing with different fun apps. If you're doing the latter, you may as well just get a cheap Chinese brand tablet for £50 or £100. Whereas if you're getting a laptop, that suggests you're working on something important, like your next book, or you're working from home on important documents, so you don't want it to fail on you. So I would recommend getting trusted brands that have been doing this for years and years, like Samsung, Acer, Dell, and so on, if you're going to do the research yourself. So let's get to the first laptop, and this is if you're really tight budget. I've done the research for you, so you don't have to avail yourself of hours and days and weeks of research figuring out which one to get from the thousands of options. And I would, if I was on a £300 budget, this is what laptop I would get. It's called the Acer Swift 1. It's a 14-inch laptop, so nice and sleek. It looks smart. It fits neatly. 14 inches is kind of quite a nice compact size, but still enough to be able to do your work on. You probably won't want to have multiple things open at once side by side on that kind of screen. So for example, comparing if it's important to compare Word documents side by side, that will be a bit of a strain on the eyes. You'll probably just want to have one thing open at a time. But it's great value at $299. It has where I mentioned about, if you can afford it, get 8 GB of RAM, this amount of SSD and so on. For £300, this is a pretty good laptop actually, although it doesn't have all those aspects. It's got 4 GB of RAM, which is just enough to perform for this day and age, and I expect will be for the next few years at least. And it's got 128 GB of SSD memory. So again, if you're doing lots of stuff with photos and videos or other sorts of large files that are over 10, maybe 100 megabytes each, that will soon eat into the local storage. So you'll probably, if you're dealing with that, get yourself an external hard drive and just store it on there instead of locally to the laptop. However, 128 will be plenty if you're dealing with mostly with documents, presentations and things like that. But for the money, it's a really good laptop. One thing that appealed to me, that I think would appeal to a lot of people, is it has a massive 15-hour battery life. So that's pretty much 2 full working days without having to recharge it. I think that's pretty impressive. And if we go on the link, I'll include links below to each of these items, but if I just open that in a new tab and have a look at this Swift, yeah, it's still $299 on Amazon, so it's a really good price as well, 20% off at the moment. It even includes a free subscription to Microsoft 365, which is quite handy. And yeah, the 15-hour battery is certainly something to shout about, because that's highly unusual for laptops, but will certainly be really useful if you're on the go, if you want to work in coffee shops or at airports or things like that on your latest novel, or just emailing and so on. this will do most of what you want it to do, and it also comes with the latest Windows 11. So although I mentioned the processor and RAM, it's clearly built to be able to run the latest operating systems, so security and things like that aren't a concern. Just while I mentioned security, I've previously experimented with Norton, McAfee and so on. Now I just rely and find quite useful the inbuilt Windows security, and certainly the equivalent for Apple Macs negates any need for any external security provider. It just uses up battery, and sometimes, I think it's well publicized, a few years ago McAfee themselves created a security problem from their own security software. So when you've got Windows inbuilt security, making sure you keep your system up to date with the latest security updates. I wouldn't even bother spending the 50 to 70 quid a year or whatever it is for an annual subscription to these security things. But that's just my view. So the second laptop, if you've got around about £500 budget, that is when you will be able to reach that, what I described as the holy trinity. That will buy you at least the 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 SSD, and a decent processor. So 500 quid, if you can push the boat out, that will last you an extra year or two as a laptop itself. And the one I've chosen for this is the Hewlett-Packard 15.6 inch. So it's a bigger screen, however it comes with bigger specs as well. So it's got 8 gigabytes of RAM, so that means your stuff will generally run quicker and smoother, and an Intel Core i5 processor, and it's actually got 0.5 terabyte of solid state drive internal storage, so you might not need that external hard drive. It will take you a good while to fill that up, as long as you're not purely dealing in storing videos and things like that. It's got really good reviews on Amazon. One thing I liked in particular about this one, you've also got all your connectivity ports, including the kind of super fast USB ports. If you do want an external hard drive, plug that in, it transfers the data very quickly. You've got the HDMI cable, and even if you want to upload photos from your camera, as I do, onto the laptops, you've got the SD or micro SD card slots as well. It's also decent with the inbuilt HD camera and speakers if you're doing teleconferencing, things like that. It's only a 7-hour battery. Because of the bigger screen, it's obviously putting more power into the display. I tend to turn my screen brightness down to extend my battery. That's a helpful tip if you're thinking of doing that. But that's pretty much a day, and it's a bit heavier, but it certainly packs a punch. And on Amazon, again, I'll put the link in below. Let's just check. It's still around about that price. £554. And yeah, it's got a lot of positive ratings. So if you've got a 500 quid budget or so, I'd recommend that. I've done the research for you. That I think that's a good bang for your buck as one of my trusted brand laptops suggestions. If you can push the boat out a little bit further, I'd even recommend the Dell Inspiron 3511. So Dell is long-standing in the computers and laptops arena. So that's currently $599, but it depends on your option that you choose with it. If you wanted a different processor, for example. So the 3511 is actually a bit cheaper than $699 at the moment. So it's good to keep a lookout on these and get the best price. So there you go. And if money is less of an object and you're willing to push the boat out for £1,000, then the world's your oyster in terms of really good quality laptops. And if you've got more to spend than £1,000 if you're looking to spend £2,000 on a super duper gaming processing laptop for dealing with creative design and all the other complicated resource heavy stuff. You probably don't need my help, and you've done the research yourself. So this video is more geared to those that just want to make a quick decision and do what most other people do on laptops. So for £1,000, I would, based on my research, I'd recommend the Asus VivoBook Pro 15. So that's a 15-inch laptop, so or 15.6, I think it is. So that's plenty of space to have things side by side on the screen if you need to. It also boasts it's got some OLED display. So let me just go to the let me have a look on Amazon. Yeah, that's it, OLED display. So that just means the colors are more vivid and it's a better display for videos and gaming and things like that. But also just things will present nicer for when you're working on stuff. And it's always nice for things to present really nicely when you're working on stuff. It makes things feel a little less like work. That comes with a Intel i7 processor, which is really powerful. And don't let the name fool you. The i7 is actually a lot better than the i5. It comes with its own separate graphics card as well, so that means more of its 16 gigabytes of RAM are used for the applications, not just the visuals. And it's 16 gigabytes. I mean, I can vouch for 16 gigabytes of RAM. I have it on my Samsung laptop, which is another option I can recommend, but the prices aren't good at the moment, so if price is your thing, I'd recommend this. But Samsungs are good as well, but 16 gigabytes, the computer loads up quickly, you can do lots of things on it at any one time, and so on and so forth. So yeah. Oh, and you get with that 1 terabyte of storage, SSD storage. So whether you're dealing with photos, videos, or other high file sizes, PowerPoint presentations, PowerPoint presentations, by the way, they get big when you've got a lot of images in them. People don't realize that, but maybe I'll make another video another day on how to reduce the size of PowerPoints, because I often encounter them ridiculously large because people haven't compressed the pictures in them. But also if you've got large data sets, then yeah, 1 terabyte is going to be plenty for you, and it's going to be reliable. And so on. So I hope you found that helpful. These a run through of these laptops depending on your budget. So for 300 quid it's the Acer Swift, for 500 quid the Hewlett Packard, and that's got the holy trinity of RAM, SSD storage, and a processor. And for £1,000 the Asus VivoBook looks really pleasing to work on. So that's a bit of a run through. I hope that saves you a lot of research time and gives a bit of rationale of things to look out for, what's good, what's bad in laptops, because I know it can be bamboozling for most people. People thankfully only have to do this once every 5 years or so, or if you get the Asus VivoBook, that'll last you probably a good 7 or 8 years. Given that spec. So you don't really want to be having to learn something new each time on how to figure it out, but I hope that's been helpful. Let me know below how you get on in the comments. Let me know which you've chosen. I'll be interested to find out. Please like and share this video with anyone else that's currently looking for a laptop. I hope they find it helpful either in the video or the blog I've dedicated. And until my next video, I take care, and we'll speak again soon.